Everyone, we're welcoming everyone to our committee meeting, Minerals Committee. This is February 5th. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Representative Campbell.
Here.
Representative Knapp.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Excused?
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Riggins.
Excused?
Representative Schmidt.
Here.
Representative Tarver.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Here.
Chairman Heiner.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, committee, there's, some of us are presenting in other committees, and so we're gonna have to shake this up a little bit to meet the schedule that we've been handed from other committees. So we're gonna take up House Bill 209 first, and then we will take up 192. So House Bill 209, Reliable and Dispatchable Low Carbon Standards Repeal. We have closed public testimony on that previously, so committee, what is your pleasure? Move the bill. Moved by Representative Weber. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Campbell. Any discussion on House Bill 209? Representative Knapp, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just do think it's time that we take off the repeals and unleash those energy sources from having to be mandated for our power plants. And with the new administration coming in, it definitely coincides with the timeline. So I would move this bill forward.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's walk through the bill. Anything on page 1? Any changes? Page 2, any changes or amendments? And page 3, okay. Any further discussion on House Bill 209? Sensing question. I thought I sensed that coming out. Question being called. Mark, we're voting on House Bill 209. This will be a roll call vote. Reliable and dispatchable low carbon standards repeal with no amendments.
Representative Campbell.
Aye.
Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Excused.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Riggins.
Excused.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner.
Aye.
7 aye, 0 no, 2 excused.
All right, thank you. So House Bill 209 has passed the Minerals Committee with the recommended do pass. We will now turn the chairmanship over to Vice Chair Tarver to discuss, we continue with public testimony, and a few of us have to go to judiciary for a little bit. So, Vice Chair Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't recall exactly where we were at, but I think that the next person
We need to do online.
do online. Yeah, so we will start online. Do we have a Phil Irwin online? Yeah, folks, the reason we are doing online first is this person in particular has a prior commitment, so we're gonna grab him real quick and then we'll bring it back inside here. If he's,
Yep, I'm here.
all right, Phil, please go ahead.
You bet. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about this very important bill. As a way of introduction, my name's Phil Irwin. I'm the president and CEO of Federated Rural Electric Insurance Exchange. As a background, Federated writes 95% of cooperatives in the country and operating in 47 states. And in Wyoming, we write 100% of the electric cooperatives. Our focus has always been on safety, whether it's lineman safety or protecting the communities that the co-ops serve. And so I'll talk a little bit about the availability and the cost of what we're seeing in the upper layer liability insurance coverage based on what's going on with the wildfire. To give you an idea, back in 2022, which was not that long ago, we were able to acquire up to $62 million of coverage for most cooperatives, as long as they were doing the right things from a safety perspective. Today, the max amount we can get is $42 million in coverage. And what we've seen in the pricing of that, if you look at the first 20 million above 2 million, that's gone up about 25%. But a lot of the minimums have doubled. So smaller cooperatives are bearing more of the brunt of that. When you go above the 22 million, what we've seen there is, depending on what part of the country, anywhere from 65% to 140% increases that the reinsurers are charging us. To give you an example, for the amounts in that last $10 million, what we saw back in 22 was an average. They paid an average of a couple $1,000s for every $1 million of coverage they bought. Last fall, we started seeing that price go to $11,000. And last week we just saw a quote, which the cooperative did not take, but it was $23,000 per million. So about a 10 times increase from what we saw. So the affordability has been one thing that the reinsurer has been charging more, but the other thing we're facing is the availability of getting that coverage. With all the fires going on, especially just a few weeks ago in California, makes the reinsurers more nervous as we go along. What we've seen in the marketplace is, if you go about a year ago, our market share was 91% of all the co-ops out there. Today it's 95% and will soon probably be 100, mainly because the carrier that was writing the other handful that we did not lost their ability to provide wildfire coverage and upper liability. So they have pulled out of the market, having a gap there. If I could summarize from my thing is, I don't think the co-ops are asking for 100% immunity, but they are asking, I think, for protection if they're doing the right things and spending money to protect their communities and trying to keep the power on. I will tell you, our reinsurers are following legislative actions such as this very closely. Last week, I was in New York City meeting with two of them, and they wanted to run down what was happening. They want to make sure that things are out there to keep these runaway verdicts, if you will, and stuff from impacting them too much. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have and clarify anything that I need to.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Committee, do we have any questions? Please, Representative Campbell.
Thank you, sir. Quick question. You said you're not looking for 100% indemnity, but pretty close as long as they're doing their things. Can you please reiterate on that? Because that is our biggest concern.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Basically, if they have adopted a wildfire mitigation plan, or following the right steps, things happen. Danger trees that from outside the right of way that fall in, which they have no control over. Those are the things that, if they're following the rules, doing what they say, and things do happen out there, that's where we're looking for the protection. Obviously, if you have somebody does not have a good right of way maintenance plan, they don't have a good wildfire mitigation plan in place, then the protection shouldn't apply, because these are the steps that cooperatives need to do to protect their communities.
Committee, any other questions? Mr. Irwin, I have a question for you. I'm assuming you read this bill, and if this bill is to be implemented, is this going to help get this insurance for these utilities? I mean, is it going to have an effect? Is it going to lower the cost? I just would like to have a little bit of,
Sure.
what's this going to do for them?
Yeah. The most important thing it's going to do is going to provide the availability of coverage. In other words, the carriers will look at writing coverage. To give you an idea, I do have one California co-op that we picked up recently, and the reinsurers would not provide any wildfire coverage for them. And that could be what happens across the country if these losses keep going and there's not things there. So the availability is the first thing. And to give you an idea, last August, we had a 30 million exit 20 million treaty that got terminated. And it took us through the first week of December to get it replaced with a $20 million treaty. The pricing, I will tell you that will eventually go down as long as the losses aren't there. And a lot of times, what their claims people tell me is, this is a great law passed, et cetera. How will it stand up in the courts? And once they see that, I think we'll see the decrease in pricing going on. We still have wildfire claims, range fires, et cetera, but they're not to the magnitude of driving the reinsurers crazy, if you will. So availability is what we're really looking at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irwin. Thanks for your testimony, and I think we'll bring it back inside now. And do we
Okay.
have anyone in the room that would like to, Mr. Deti, do you have some words of wisdom for us?
Never sure about that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Travis Deti with the Wyoming Mining Association. We've been kind of watching this bill from the outside and talking to some of my members about it. We're struggling with rising electricity rates, just like everybody, our friends in the oil and gas industry. A lot of my members, it's their highest operating cost next to payroll. We're watching this closely. We also know how difficult it can be, yet necessary, to find affordable insurance. And, when we're looking at this issue, I know there's been some questions in prior testimony is, the cost of mitigation, should this bill be implemented? Are your members willing to accept some rate increases to cover the costs of mitigation to do this? And, we're never happy with rate increases. But I think what we got to look at in the big picture is if nothing is in place, and we did have one of these catastrophic events like we've seen in the last couple of years in Hawaii and in California, and nothing's in place, and our utilities, one or both or whatever, get sued, get the pants sued off them, your rates are going to go up anyways, and they could go up substantially. And so, I guess the choice that this committee has to make in making the decision on this bill is, we're just in that position. And is it better to have something in place where a utility can do some mitigation, and maybe pass along some of that cost to their users, or do nothing? And in the event of a catastrophe, we're in big trouble. Then our rates really go up. And, I'm 55 years on this planet now, and I've come to recognize that we're a pretty litigious society. And if there's anything that we can do to give our utility friends a little bit of protection in that arena, because we don't want to see our utilities go bankrupt. We want to see our utilities in Wyoming healthy and keep burning Wyoming coal. And I think this gives them a little protection, and again, to go out and get that coverage that's necessary in the event of a catastrophe. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the comments I'd have to offer, and I would stand for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Deti. Committee, any questions? All righty, you're off the hook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Moline, please.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in firm support of this bill. We have to give kudos to Mr. Taylor with the REA for reaching out to not just Farm Bureau, but some other ag groups as well to make sure the landowners were representative. The concerns that we had were addressed. We feel good, confident where this bill is. And I think Mr. Deti hit on a very good point. If there's costs to reduce wildfires, we realize we'll probably pay for it, through rate increases. But to have this plan in place and to have these firms, the utility firms, working to mitigate fire damage is extremely important. Because I'd rather pay a little bit right now than all of a sudden have a huge catastrophe and have a large rate increase. But to keep them more solvent and being able to operate at a lower cost is good for my members. With that, Mr. Chairman, sitting in firm support of this bill, I would take any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mullane. Do we have any questions?
Thank
I
you.
don't think so. I guess, sir, you could introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bob McLaurin. I'm normally here in front of you with WHAM, but today I have my Lower Valley Energy Board of Directors hat on. So I'm one of the 7 board members for LVE here in support, strong support of this bill. I'm also a member of WREA Board of Directors as well. So this is a very big issue for all the utilities and for us as well. Right now, I'll tell you, Lower Valley is spending in the neighborhood of hundreds of thousands of dollars right now and have done so every year for the last many years on wildfire mitigation. Is one of our top concerns, our top priorities. So we stand very much in favor of this bill. Be happy to answer any questions, sir.
Thank you for your testimony, committee. Any questions? All righty, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Obermueller.
Morning, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Good morning.
Pete Obermueller, President of the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Nice to see you all this morning. Stand in support of the bill as well. Won't repeat all the things that my friend Mr. Detail said with the Mining Association, particularly suing the pants off and whatnot, but appreciate his comments. I just want to add 2 things, Mr. Chairman. Number one, with respect to rate increases, we're facing rate increases no matter what. And we engage in that arena at the appropriate place at the PSC. I know that my friends at the utilities, I'm not their favorite guy sometimes about that because I push back pretty hard on rate increases at the PSC, but that's the arena to do it. But this, without some sort of protection for them, as Mr. Detail said, we could really go off the rails here. And that would be infinitely worse for us than just fighting it out at the PSC over rate increases. And Mr. Chairman, I would just point out, the California Assembly is moving a bill right now that would extend liability to wildfires to my industry, that it would allow for folks to sue oil and gas for somehow causing the wildfires. So it's kind of coming for us all, not here, but kind of coming for us all, and certainly a concern to us. So support the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Obermueller. Is there any questions? I guess you said it all. Appreciate it. Sir, please introduce yourself and start in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kevin Reddy. I am the president of the Federated Firefighters of Wyoming, and I represent the career firefighters across the state. We rise in support of this bill. We've heard a lot of testimony about the potential to keep rate increases away, but there's another big value in this bill in that there's a lot of wildfire mitigation that the utility company would be utilizing across our rangeland and forest. And having served in the wildland early in my career, and our members are serving the wildland now, there's a big difference between well-managed forest and well-managed properties as far as wildfire mitigation and fuel reduction than unmanaged forest. And so any management that we can do around utility lines, they're easier to protect from a fire suppression standpoint, and we support the bill. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Reddy, thank you for your testimony. Committee, any questions? No, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're good. Mr. Bush, please introduce yourself and let us, you're not for this, are you?
Vice Chairman Tarver, let me think about it for a second. David Bush with Black Hills Energy. We are in strong support of the bill, and has been said by everyone else, and I won't repeat it. There is a lot of benefit to this bill. The coalition that worked this over the interim and continued to work on it over this winter, I think is really a case study in how good legislation can happen. We had everyone, not quite everyone. We had several people at the table and tried our best to get every group that we could at the table to be represented, and since have even added a few more to the coalition to try to put together the best bill that we can, and I think we're there. It is a good piece of legislation. It's something that I think is going to help ratepayers across the state. We've heard from mining, oil and gas, firefighters, landowners. I think everyone realizes that maybe this isn't the position that we'd like to be in with some of the lawsuits and things that are happening, but this is the unfortunate position that we're in. So with that, we are in firm support of the bill, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. Just sit for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Committee, any questions? Appreciate it, your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Please introduce yourself and give us your
Thank you, Chairman.
testimony.
Members of the committee, my name is Bruce Acey. I appear here today on behalf of Montana Dakota Utilities Company. Montana Dakota provides natural gas and electric service in northern Wyoming. It has services in a number of states, including Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. And I say that because as part of our efforts this year, we have got together as a company and looked at efforts that have been made in these other states. There are bills such as this in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. I can tell you that all of them have essentially the same genesis. In other words, they started from about the same place. They're similar bills, but in comparing them, I think we have a very good bill, particularly as we've met together as a group, a coalition, have taken input from everybody and tried to fashion something that would be beneficial to all. And so having compared them to a number of other states and the efforts in other states, we think this is a great bill. We stand in firm support of it, and I thank you for your time this morning and stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Essay. Is there any questions? Thank you, sir. Who's up next?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Carter. I'm with Rocky Mountain Power. Got a couple of my associates here with me in case there are additional questions. One of the benefits of going near the end is that everybody's taking all your talking points. But I will tell you, we stand in support of this legislation. Wildfire is, without a doubt, the existential threat in the West. And as Mr. Acey just mentioned, there are a number of states working similar legislations throughout the West. And I continue to have conversations about those legislations with my colleagues in other states. In fact, last night, to one of these points, last night I got a message from a colleague in Arizona who was complimentary of the process in Wyoming, because as you've heard throughout the last 2 days of testimony, there's a very strong coalition of people who recognize the need for this. And while there are concerns about how will this impact rates, and we recognize that is a legitimate concern, the consensus is we'd rather have protections against runaway juries or problematic litigation, while we put in protections against wildfire. Now, I brought with me our wildfire mitigation plan for Wyoming. We already do it because Utah passed wildfire mitigation plan legislation a few years ago, and then they passed similar legislation to this last year around liabilities. So if one of our states requires mitigation plans, we do it for all of our states. Our goal is to do everything we can to mitigate against wildfire. We recognize that this is a big state, and what this legislation does is create a very good standard of care and allows us to operate against that standard of care and to work to keep us out of wildfire. And that should be our goal. We should want to do everything we possibly can as utilities, as citizens, as participants in the process to keep us away from wildfire. And that will continue to be our commitment, is to provide safe and reliable electricity to our customers. As we do that, we appreciate what this legislation does, is it provides some protection on the back end. And so the other point I want to make is we have had some really good, robust conversations about cost. What we do recognize in this bill is that the process remains for our customers to question the prudency of any costs that are incurred to put in place these wildfire mitigation plans. We cannot go to the commission and say, well, the legislature passed this bill, and so you have to let us recover these costs. We can't. It's not in that legislation. We still have to prove that we were prudent in how we spent the customer money. And we appreciate the process and the Public Service Commission process and the at times very adversarial process with our customers. That is an important part of how of how the utility mechanism works. And to see that, as Mr. Obermuller mentioned, at times we are very adversarial, but to see that we can come together to support this shows the importance we believe that this legislation is for the state of Wyoming. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Carter, thank you. Committee? Any questions? Appreciate your testimony. Mr. Schultz, would you like to say something?
Shane Schultz on behalf of Rocky Mountain Power. It's a good little bill. I'll leave it at that.
Well, now that's short and sweet. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify? Good morning, sir. If you just introduce yourself and begin.
Good morning, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Anthony Ornelas, Administrator of the Wyoming Office of Consumer Advocate. Try to be very quick, but I see some new faces. So for those that aren't aware, the Office of Consumer Advocate is an independent division of the Public Service Commission, and we represent all classes of ratepayers across Wyoming in a variety of matters impacting the provision of utility service. I would just like to come up this morning and thank Sean Taylor and the Rural Electric Cooperative Association for their efforts in spearheading this. Our agency was part of the working committee earlier this summer and throughout the interim. And I just wanted to come up, and I really think it's telling, the testimony you've heard today. Very rare do we get this level of agreement, especially when we're facing potential cost increases with this. So I would just like to highlight that and make myself available for any questions. The policy goals here, I think, are really twofold, and they're kind of long-term. We're really, advocating for an ounce of prevention here, and that does come with a slight cost. But we do believe it will have long-term protections for our customers and the state of Wyoming, and will strengthen our utilities, which we do want them to be strong and financially sound. And I believe this strikes an appropriate balance. So I thank you for your consideration and stand for any questions.
Mr. Ornelas, is that correct?
That is, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your testimony. Committee, any questions? All righty. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone from the PSC that would like to testify? Wearing a brown dress, perhaps? You should. Good morning. Please begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mary Throne, Chairman of the Wyoming Public Service Commission. I think I'm basically here just to see if you have any questions. A lot has been covered already. I think as we explained over the interim, and just to quickly update the new members, we already do vegetation management requirements. Those are standards. Those are part of the safe, adequate, and reliable service. But actually focusing more on specific wildfire plans, I think would be beneficial. I think one point that I always like to mention is that the utilities are not responsible for the weather. They have to design their structures so they survive the weather, and that has become more of a challenge of late. And so they do serve a public purpose. They have to operate in the public interest, and it's our job to make sure that they do so, and we think we can do that with this bill.
Fantastic. Committee, any questions? Well, short and sweet. Appreciate the testimony. So are we finished up? No one else left in the room? Do we have anyone online, Mark? Mark Aronowitz, are you on? There you are, sir. Can you please introduce yourself and give us your testimony?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mark Aronowitz. I am an attorney, and I am the Secretary, Treasurer, and Chair of the legislative committee of the Wyoming Trial Lawyers Association. So we are here to share some concerns and comments, but I want to make it clear that we are neither for or against this legislation. So we are not opposing it today. The main concern that I wanted to share is that this is a somewhat unusual piece of legislation. And the main concern that I have and would just want to share with you folks is that if I'm ever with a prospective client, or perhaps you might have the same conversation with a constituent who has lost, everything or property or even been injured in a wildfire, and to say to them, you're not going to be able to do anything about what happened to you and what your losses were. The utilities, in a wildfire tragedy that may have been caused by a power line, the utilities came up with a plan. That plan was approved by the Public Service Commission, which, the average person has probably never heard of. And then page 7 of the bill says the commission shall, not later than 120 days, approve the plan. So the person that may have, or the entity that may have caused the harm writes the plan shall be approved. And then it becomes borderline impossible to bring a claim, once those things have happened. So that is our concern. I hope I never have to, talk a prospective client through that and explain, what had happened. I hope you never have to speak to constituents either. It may sound like, well, that's definitely opposition. We also met with the folks that helped put this legislation together, and we were very impressed by them. And they told us there has never been a lawsuit due to public utility wildfires, plans or no plans, that this actually hasn't happened here in Wyoming. I'm hopefully more than halfway through my career as an attorney. I've never had one of these cases brought to me. So I'm hoping that it's a moot point and that it never happens. But if it does happen, that is a concern. Just the idea of the utility writes the plan, the state pretty much approves it if it looks decent, and that's it. Switching gears for a moment, we also shared this with the group that put this legislation together, but we do have what I would consider to be a friendly amendment that makes the bill better. And this is on page 10, subsection 3. Currently says, no plaintiff shall recover non-economic damages, so something like pain and suffering or emotional distress, unless the plaintiff suffered bodily injury or died from wildfire. If someone died from wildfire, they're not going to be the plaintiff. Someone who is appointed as the personal representative is going to be the plaintiff, and the personal representative is not going to have any physical injury. Same thing if a child is hurt and it's the parent bringing the claim. The parent may not have any kind of injury. So the fix is it's no plaintiff shall recover the non-economic damages unless his or her claim is based on the injury or death of any person in a wildfire. So the parent's claim would be based on the child's claim. The wrongful death representative would be based on the claim of the deceased person. So it's just a little bit of cleanup that I think makes the bill better and honors the intent of what that subsection was trying to accomplish. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry to be here on Zoom instead of in person, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Aronowitz. Did I get that right?
Pretty close. Aronowitz, it just rolls off the tongue, Mr. Chairman.
Aronowitz. Committee, any questions? Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else online?
Yes, we do. Brandon Vick.
Brandon Vick, would you please introduce yourself and provide your testimony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Brandon Vick. I'm a regional vice president with the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies, also with some concerns on House Bill 192. I realize that some insurers were included in the debate, but it's a very big industry, and there are still several with some concerns I'd like to bring to you here. For reference, NAMIC membership reflects many of the country's largest national insurers, as well as regional and mutual insurance companies on main streets across America. NAMIC members account for 61% of homeowners insurance market, 48% of the automobile insurance market, and 25% of the business insurance market across the US. We do want to recognize the work that has been done on this bill from its inception last year. It's in a better place than it was. And with that being said, we still have some outstanding questions and concerns. To start, I think insurers are in favor of wildfire mitigation plans. Risk mitigation in general is very important to us as an industry. We believe that all utilities should have such plans and know that many of them do today. Working to reduce the risk of wildfire is a social responsibility that we all take seriously, and that responsibility should extend well beyond any piece of legislation. What we're not clear on is why there should be any type of special liability or damages standards for property damage that is caused by utility equipment. We generally favor a system in which businesses, individuals, and even quasi-government agencies are held responsible for the damages that they may cause. Limiting the exposure of an electric utility does not decrease the overall cost to the economic ecosystem. Litigation is a major cost driver in the insurance industry, and insurers need to be able to recoup their losses through subrogation if there is indeed a guilty party. Adding these costs to insurers will simply shift that burden to the home or property owner due to the higher cost of doing business. And let's not forget those who are underinsured or have chosen to go without homeowners insurance for some reason. Well, they have the ability to hire an attorney and seek the justice that they deserve. Other questions that we have revolve around some terms in the bill. What does it mean to substantially comply? I think we all have our own vision of what that means in our head, but these terms will be litigated in great detail in court. That litigation will add cost to insurers and likely rate increases to consumers. We hope and believe that utilities are doing everything that they can to clear vegetation and properly maintain their equipment. I don't think there is a utility in Wyoming that is going to intentionally start a fire. But in the horribly unfortunate circumstance that a wildfire is started by a utility, costs need to be able to be recovered in a timely manner without excessive legal hurdles. Passing this bill as written will undoubtedly shift costs from utilities to insurers, and the question remains as to how much. We don't know that answer right now, but as costs increase, rate increases are likely to follow. Please remember that if a wildfire does occur, the costs will still have to be picked up by someone. Again, we appreciate the work that's been done on this bill. It is much better than it was, but we believe there is still more to be done, and NAMIC will be happy to be a part of that discussion should it take place. Thank you again for your time, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Mr. Vick, thank you for your testimony. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. No more. Holy cow, I think we're all done. So we're gonna close public testimony. Committee, what would you like to do?
Move the bill.
Moved by Representative Lawley, seconded by Representative Larson. Well, let's work the bill. Is there, want to just go page by page? Okay. First page, anything? Second page, anything? You want me to go slow here, or do you want to find your pages first?
Mr. Chairman, would it just be appropriate to move some of the proposed ones?
When,
Okay.
Representative Larson, when we get to the page, please do. So we're on page 2, but we good on page 2.
I think we're good on page 2.
Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And if there's any questions, committee, please ask away. Page 6. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. On page 6, line 22, I move an amendment that was brought by the Wyoming Rural Firefighters Association and my fire chief Coker, that the committee has a copy of, but I'll read it into the record. Insert on page 6 after line 22, Romanet 12, and consider input from the Wyoming State Forestry Division, comma, the Wyoming Rural Firefighters Association, comma, and any other appropriate federal, state, or local fire entity.
Second.
It's been, you moved it?
I did move it.
Yes, and it's been seconded by Representative Larson. Mark, did you get that? And if you didn't, I think we can get it to you afterwards. You got it? Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion? Okay, I guess we will vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That amendment has been moved. Okay, so we're still on page 6. Is there anything else you'd like to add on to 6? Moving to page 7. Moving to Representative Larson, are you anticipating?
Yeah.
You're okay, all right. Page 8. Page 9. And page 10.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the amendment proposed by the Trial Lawyers Association that changes the language on page 10, lines 12 through 14 to read, "No plaintiff shall recover non-economic damages unless his or her claim is based on the injury or death of any person in a wildfire."
It's been moved by Mr. Larson, it's seconded by Representative Lawley. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That amendment has been moved. This was on page 8. Basically does B. Representative Lawley.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I have an amendment on page 8.
Or no, I'm wrong.
Wait,
I was wrong, page 9. Top of 9.
we could, yes, what I would recommend and what I move is an amendment on page 8, beginning line 22, inserting a new paragraph, small b, an electric utility and landowner with an alleged wildfire-related claim against that utility must negotiate in good faith. Such electric utility must respond to the landowner within 90 days of the written submission of itemized damages from the landowner. These negotiations must take place before any lawsuit resulting in the wildfire-related claim and allowed by this act will be filed.
It replaces that. Did you say it that way? You added it, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are adding that as the B, small b paragraph and eliminating the current B paragraph that begins on page 9. Well, lines 1 through 4 being deleted.
Mark, is that crystal clear?
My speed writing.
We'll get it
But
to
I
you
know
afterwards.
you have it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're eliminating 1 through 4 on page 9.
Yeah.
And injecting what Representative Lawley has there.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Representative Larson. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That amendment has been moved. Okay. I think we already hit 10 unless there's some more on 10. Page 11. And the last page. I think we're done. Committee, what is your pleasure? We've already moved it? Discussion? Representative Lawley?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Committee, we heard today some pretty compelling testimony about what's actually happening in this area. We heard about 10 times an increase in rates for some payers for insurance, and most troubling, the potential lack of insurance coverage to cover these wildfires. Reinsurance companies are pulling out of that market. And what we have here is a really significant situation. You might even call it a crisis. And really, it's up to the state to respond. And this is a public policy option. You've already heard that many other states are doing it. But quite frankly, the failure to act, I think, would be devastating. So I am on and for this bill as amended.
Representative Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Lawley, for your support of this bill and for all the people who've come to testify and show up online. I think that it really shows that this is a very important piece of legislation for Wyoming and for the West as a whole. I mean, we have to be able to continue to operate, and when there's a wildfire, that can cause some problems. So that's why I decided to sign on to this bill and help get this through, and appreciate all the work that's been put into it. And I ask for an aye vote from the committee. That would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Anyone else like to comment on this bill? I will comment with these amendments. I am in favor of this bill at this time, and I feel like we have done some compromising. We got some folks in here that really worked hard on this bill, and I appreciate everything they did. So with that, I guess we'll take a vote.
Voting on House Bill 192 with amendments. Representative Campbell.
Right.
Representative Knapp. He is an aye. Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Riggins, excused. Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner is an aye. This is 8 aye, 0 no, 1 excused, passed with amendments.
Well, thank you, committee, and with that, I guess we are done. Thank you, everyone.